Jean Ross. She is the president of National Nurses United. They were protesting. Hold on, we got her here. They were protesting in front of the White House this week because of the lack of PPE. Jean Ross is an acute care nurse, president of the National Nurses United Union, and this is the largest union and professional organization of registered nurses in the country. Jean, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So just tell us about the protests and why.
Well, we thought it was a very good visual, number one, to do it in front of his house so he can see that all of his remarks about us having the equipment we need and everybody getting every test they need are all not true. So we had the first protest with nurses there reading off the names of our nurses, fellow nurses who have died. And then the last one was a showing of 88 pairs of shoes of nurses who have died so that you can clearly see it's getting worse and it's not getting better. And we're not going to stop until we get what we need.
And by he, you're talking about the president and his house. That's obviously the White House. So, Jean, give me a sense of like, are you in these hospitals? Can you give us a sense of like just what's happening and where? I imagine the hotspots have been sort of like migrating across the country at different places where there are shortages, or is it just sort of like broadly speaking shortages across the board?
The hot spots will be migrating. It hits us in waves, depending on where you are and where the first person was that was infected. But as far as not having the equipment that we need, that is general. That is all over. And it can be as bad as, okay, this hospital is terribly short, but it can be in the same hospital that one unit has it and another doesn't. There's no plan. We have been begging for one since SARS and Ebola. We know what we need. We need the proper protective equipment, which is N95s or better. We recommend better. We need gowns. We need gloves. We need booties. The virus, follows on the soles of your shoes. We have been largely ignored, both before the pandemic and now. We solidly have the support of the public, and we appreciate that. But our job is to protect the public. We cannot do that if we cannot protect ourselves. So people need to understand that despite what the president is saying, despite what the hospital association and employers are saying, we do not have enough equipment and we should not be reusing or decontaminating it.
So give me a sense of, I know there has been a tremendous amount of consolidation with hospitals. And that there's, hedge funds and every single bit of profit that can be wrung out of these hospitals is being wrung out of them. And often that means that like, hey, are we really going to store up all this equipment? Like how much of this is attributable? Like how much is we have a failure on a federal level from the national government to procure these things and distribute them in a way that is commensurate with the need? And how much of it is that, structurally speaking, we were particularly vulnerable to this type of thing because of the consolidation that we're seeing in the hospitals?
Well, it is the system, non-system that we have in this country. You're right. It isn't just this pandemic. We are sitting ducks. It's things nurses have been protesting about for literally decades. The lack of desire to store equipment. They call it just in time. You don't want anything sitting there because God forbid that's money. So just in time means you got to wait for your linen. You got to wait for protective equipment. You have to beg. Yes, we do need it. No, I don't need to prove to you that we need it. I'm the nurse. I'm taking care of these patients. I said we need it. We need it. We need enough staffing. Well, it costs money to hire nurses. So most employers, unless they have a union contract, can't be forced to hire more. The system that you hear Cuomo talking about, we should be sharing within an area, certainly we should be. That is what you would be doing if you had a well-coordinated, true public healthcare system. Based on profits, what we get is what we've been protesting about for, again, years. It's the closing off of facilities that they decide are not profitable for them, making people go farther and farther out to get their health care. And here we find ourselves in a pandemic. All the things we have been warning about are coming true, and it really doesn't make us feel good to say, I told you so. We want it changed.
When we look at the disparities in terms of deaths and in terms of contraction rates too, but in terms of deaths between essentially low income areas and higher income areas, between minority communities, white communities. When we talk about closing hospitals that are not profitable, that doesn't mean that they're not getting business. It just means that they're not profitable. And they're, right. I mean, so I mean, we're seeing these fundamental problems with the medical industry play out in terms of these disparities too, aren't we?
We are. You can take a look at the statistics again for many, many years. You don't get the same access to healthcare depending on your color, depending on your income. It's really where your zip code is. You don't get the same treatment when you are in the hospital. You can look at disparities. It's not just color, it's gender too. Women are discounted more readily than men. These are issues, problems we've had for some time, and it has a great deal to do with the way this non-system is set up in our country.
So, Jean, so what can, where does pressure need to be exerted, right? I mean, Donald Trump does not care what I say. I mean, like there's no scenario where he cares what I say.
Yeah.
He cares what you guys say when you protest, because nurses are, I think, support for nurses and medical personnel is not partisan, and he can lose some of his voters. But from people who are not voters of Donald Trump's, which is I think most of the people we're talking to right now, what can we do to support what you guys are trying to do? Just basically help us, essentially. What can we do to do that?
Well, we have a number of ways in which you can help. We have, if you could go to protectnurses.org and sign our petitions there. We have several. One, to get Trump to finally please invoke the Defense Production Act. He should be making equipment right now for the short term and for the long term, because this isn't over. Please fill the voicemail and emails of your legislators. Tell them you believe what nurses are saying. They are not getting the equipment they need, and they need it now. So those are the things they can do. And if you have any questions about how else you can help, you can go to our main website, nationalnursesunited.org, and there are many links to show you the petitions that we have and other ways that you could help.
Jean,